It's Wednesday, January 28th. I'm Adam Walsh, and this is The Signal. Big need for affordable housing across the country and in this province. The federal government has a new agency, newish, called Build Canada Homes. The mission, build affordable homes, support builders with financing, and encourage better building methods. How is that working? What's the outlook? We're going to talk about it. Sheldon Pollett, Executive Director. I've not said this yet with you of Raising the Roof. It's been in my mind, but welcome, because I've talked to you in other ways before over the years. But how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm really happy to be here, albeit wearing a different hat, literally and figuratively. Pleasure, always a pleasure, Adam.
Yeah, I'm used to just running into you almost literally down near Dominion by the lake when we're out walking and running. So it's nice to have you in studio.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, we're not bumping into each other here. Jen Crowe is here. How you doing? Executive Director, Choices for Youth.
Doing great, Adam. Nice to see you.
All right. Nice to see you both. You're in out of the cold. You got your cups of water, I think. No water for you, Sheldon?
We're
okay?
all good.
You're all good? Okay,
yeah,
I'm just checking.
I copied up before I got here.
Okay, good. I've got my water for this. So as we start, I mentioned there Build Canada Homes. So we're gonna explain what that means to people. But first, what's for affordable housing? When we think of affordable homes and affordable housing in this province, like what's the lay of the land been and the need? And you can also kind of like, as you do that, explain a bit about your organizations, which people will know about. Sheldon, you go first.
Certainly. Well, Raising the Roof, people, I think, have, been very familiar with their work over the last 30 years. That's focused primarily on, obviously, we have a fantastic Toque campaign that really brings awareness and attention to the issue of housing and homelessness. Been doing that, and that's going strong. It's a brand and an effort that is very resilient, and we're proud of it. But what people, I think, are interested in learning about us is about 5 years ago we made a shift. We still do public policy, advocacy, joint efforts with others across the country to try and advocate for the kind of change that's needed to more effectively address issues of homelessness and get more affordable housing built. But that pivot 5 years ago was now what I say is we have more skin in the game because what we did was made the decision to get into the business of developing and operating affordable housing, which is, you can imagine, from a public policy, advocacy, awareness perspective, is quite a shift.
Yeah.
It's going really well. And the need is there, right? And part of it was a call to action from our own organization, say, given what's happening in the country, the trajectory around homelessness and the issues related to affordable housing, I think it was a commitment by our organization. We had to figure out how to do more, so we entered that space. The other thing that has been really exciting over the last few years in particular is our motto is really, providing housing solutions to Canadians. So if, we do that through, we build a house for someone's getting a home. If I help you build a house for someone, guess what? Someone is still getting a home. So we have a growing number of folks that, in municipalities of different sizes and shapes, community partners, coming to us asking for our help because, yes, they have an opportunity, they certainly have a need. They may have a piece of land, they may have a building, but they don't have the capacity or wherewithal to take a project to fruition. So that's where we come in as a value-aligned charitable partner.
So then give me an example, perhaps even like a downtown St. John's example, of what affordable housing could be through the work you're doing.
Well, one of the projects that we were very excited about in downtown St. John's, which is a project of Raising the Roof, is redeveloping a long-term vacant building downtown at 275 Duckworth. We're looking at developing 34 units, micro units, and prioritizing folks who are experiencing housing instability and or homelessness. In that project, we're looking at it as a first for the province as an intergenerational model of housing supports. So we would partner with Choices for Youth and Connections with Seniors to look at that model as an opportunity to kind of bring those two groups together in a really exciting, innovative, intergenerational way. That model has been successful in other parts of the world. So that's a great example of what that looks like in real terms.
It's something sitting empty, right? Yep. So the building's sitting empty, and you're like, you know what? This could be affordable housing.
Yep.
Now, when I say micro-unit, or when you say micro-unit, I think people might have a few different ideas. What does that mean exactly?
So for us, a micro unit would be anywhere in the range of 350 to 450 square feet.
It's like a studio apartment.
In Toronto these days, it's a studio apartment or a very expensive condo. That is not the case of what we're doing here, but fully independent. They're units. It is a unit in that context. It has all the amenities you need to be fully self-sustaining and independent in your unit. We also want to build a community around those units because we know for folks who, in addition to affordable housing, they require some level of support. Could be light touch or more intensive, depending on the support resources available. So we want to make sure that we create a community at the same time.
Right. Okay. So that's an idea of what you're trying to do. Some of, and you talked about some of the affordable housing need, looking at empty, taking like that kind of a project idea. So Jen, come in with your side of it for Choices for Youth and what you folks are trying to do and what you've seen. I mean, broadly, but also on the youth side of things.
Yeah. So, Adam, for your listeners and viewers, I have to keep reminding myself that there's
that's
viewers.
right. We go YouTube later
Love
today.
It.
Yeah.
So, for folks who may not be aware, Choices for Youth is a youth-serving nonprofit organization focused on ending youth homelessness. And we do that by providing a myriad of housing options, everything from emergency housing to affordable, supportive, and transitional, but also on-site mental health services, primary care, education, employment, and family-based services. So for us, when we think about affordable housing, which again, we typically think about this as folks paying less than 30% of their overall income before taxes on housing. So we think about that. That's affordable. When we think about this for young people, it's such a critical component of what it means to be able to achieve stability and to pursue your goals. All of us need a safe and affordable place to call home. And the experience that we've seen, certainly since 2020 in particular, there's two things happening. Number one is we've seen a massive decrease in vacancy rates. So in 2020, vacancy rates for rentals in the city was 7.5%.
Wow.
Today, 1.5%. Right? So what's happening, I think actually it's 1.8% right now.
It's a little better than it was doing. But
it's gotten a little bit better than last year, which is great. Yeah. But, with the experience that we're seeing, how this actually translates for the youth that we support is that landlords have a lot more options for who they choose to rent to.
Yeah.
Right? So what happens is that those who are vulnerable, young people, could be, a 25-year-old, 26-year-old who's looking for affordable housing. They're transitioning away from the shelter system, but maybe they're accessing income support. Maybe they have another rental subsidy. It's a landlord choosing if they want to rent to that young person or if they want to rent to someone who's making $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year, stable job, working as a professional. And unfortunately, that's really unequitable, but it's the reality that we're facing. So when we think about affordable housing and the partnerships with Raising the Roof, it's really about how do we give vulnerable populations a fair shot at affordable housing? And that is really the foundation by which they can then go back to school, transfer to employment, all those pieces. But that housing first model for young people is really around you need to be able to attain and meet your basic needs first. And that's food security, that's mental health services, that's primary care, and it's also a safe and affordable place to call home. So it's a constant challenge for us. And unfortunately, it's gotten way more tangly over the last 6 years or so as those vacancy rates have plummeted. And part of our response to that, Solutions Forward, part of our response to that is how do we make sure we're actually developing more affordable housing for these young people so that they can then move through that continuum and, onwards to education and employment.
All right, so that's the lay of the land. That's what some of the efforts are. And then with Prime Minister Mark Carney's government, a bunch of announcements came. We're in this nation-building time. We're trying to build a lot. Like they've looked at the housing crisis across the country, and there's been so many announcements made, in recent months. One of those, Build Canada Homes, right? That new federal agency that's trying to build affordable homes. So on the line with us now, we have Ray Sullivan, Executive Director of Canadian Housing and Renewal Association. Ray, how you doing? Welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much. Great to be here again.
First of all, before I get to my questions, you're coming to town in April, aren't you?
We are. We're really excited about that. We actually launched registration yesterday for our National Congress on Housing and Homelessness, which will be April 20 to 23 in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador.
Oh, April 20 to 23. Hey, hold on. This is not even sound effects, folks. I'm actually putting this in my calendar right now. Housing show on location. All right. So I'm assuming you're down with that.
Yeah, it's absolutely. We'd be happy to see you there. And what's great too, and it's great to have Sheldon and Jen on the line too. They're actually hosts for some of our site tours. So we've got 650 delegates coming from across the country to share and learn from each other, but also learn from what's happening in St. John's. And we're going to be visiting Sheldon and his team up at Duckworth, that project you just mentioned, and visiting Jen and her team in Pleasantville at the Canada Lands Company site as well.
Yeah, so either of those spots might be good for us to bring. I like bringing the show out and about, so TBD, and we will be in touch on that. I'll stay in touch with the folks here in the studio to plan something out on that because I want to keep the conversation going. But while you're on the line for the next few minutes, I would love for listeners across the province can you give us just a bit of an explainer on Build Canada Homes? Right, this thing gets announced, but what does it mean, and then how's everyone looking at it?
Yeah, so it's a real shift in the federal government's approach for how they support more housing affordability. And the federal government was out of this space for decades, from the mid 1990s until maybe about 10 years ago when they started coming back into it. They started coming back in with direct loans from CMHC for rental housing developers, for nonprofit housing developers, but it was a really prescribed program, and CMHC was very limited in what it could do. So what they've done instead is create a new agency that will soon become a full Crown corporation that has much more flexibility in how it can support affordable housing development. So it's initially capitalized with $13 billion. It's going to provide grants and loans to nonprofit housing developers like those in St. John's. And that's really its focus is non-market community housing. But it's doing two things at once. So it's about increasing the supply of affordable housing. It's also about shifting how housing is built across the country, all kinds of housing, moving toward more factory-based production, and really trying to take advantage of what we see in a lot of other countries where construction is more cost-efficient and much more timely, not subject to winter conditions, all those other things we have outdoors this time of year across the country that slow down construction and slow down home building.
Yeah, is this some like modular homes and stuff like that, is it?
Yeah, modular, factory-based, panelized, all of those sorts of techniques where less is built on site and more is built in controlled factory settings.
Yeah, so stuff gets shipped in, you put it all together, kind of like, assemble it together without having to be out in the cold with the hammers and the nails and each stick of wood. Question for you though, like following the discussion on this, over the months, some folks will say they'll look at it's like, another, to be another Crown corporation, more red tape, things getting in the way. What's your read on the functionality of this, and is like, are there things getting in the way, or how's the functioning of it looking to you?
Yeah, what I'm seeing is an emphasis on a lot less red tape,
Right.
And this is not about a program where you have to check a whole bunch of boxes and meet government criteria. They're there to make deals, and that's a shift for the nonprofit housing community in what we're doing, and it means working in partnerships with local and provincial governments a lot more than we're used to, right? Build Canada Homes wants to fund and support portfolios, not just building by building one at a time. So I'm seeing folks across the country, working with their municipal governments, working with their provinces, teaming up to say, here's a portfolio of 1,000 units that we're going to build, over the next decade, rather than just one building over the next 2 years.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing I'm really encouraging people to look at is, if you don't have a pipeline of developments on your own plate, team up with an organization in your town, team up with the town, or go talk to the province and see how can we present a proposal together to the federal government to invest in.
Yeah, because I was looking at the Hill Times this morning, and it says Build Canada Homes is poised to make a generational investment in non-market and public housing, but will it ? It says BCH has planned 4,000 units over 6 sites as a good start, but falls well short of what's needed. But then, so if you take that and that question they're asking, and then you lay your answer that you just gave me on top of it for the potential, I think there's folks can see a through line of what could come down the pipe as things get up and start working more, and as people kind of notice what is functioning in other parts of the country.
And there's a lot of unknowns here, right?
Yeah.
Because it is a deal-making beast rather than a specific, well-defined program. So is it a generational investment? I don't know. $13 billion over 5 years is actually, pretty similar to the last 5 years of what we've seen. But is there a way to invest it differently so it produces a lot more affordable housing? That's what we're waiting to see, and that's what we're hoping to see.
So then... when do updates come around this? Because the part we're waiting and hoping to see on. Is it like looking at things quarterly, looking across to see what like different provinces are doing, different municipalities to get updates from them? Like, how do you start to kind of see the full picture of all this?
Yeah, so pay close attention to the announcements that Build Canada Homes is making right now, because I think they're deliberately trying to show examples of the sorts of things that they're interested in. So, they announced a deal a couple of weeks ago in Ottawa, where I am, with the city of Ottawa to build X number of units. And really what it is an investment deal and a co-investment deal from the city of Ottawa, right?
Is that the Heron one, the 18 minutes from downtown Ottawa, the 18-acre federal site? Is that the one, 1,100 homes?
That's one of the 6 federal sites that Canada Lands Company is actually building, but it's more than that as well. It'll include additional sites beyond that. There was an announcement, I think, last week in Toronto of Dunhouse, a really interesting partnership between a supportive housing provider and the University Hospital Network. So that strong link between housing as healthcare. So, that was a deliberate signal that these are the kinds of things that they're interested in. And there's a huge, there's a huge undersupply of supportive housing across the province, across every province. The federal government has been really clear. Their role is to invest in the capital to build the buildings. They're not going to invest in the operating dollars to pay for that healthcare and social services kinds of supports. So they're looking for provinces to step up and contribute that part. And that's where, we as communities need to engage with our provinces, say, okay, we've got land. We think we can get a federal investment to build the building. We need the province to step up with those health and social supports.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the Nova Scotia project here now, up to 1,430 homes, $300 million to unlock, it's quoted the federal government, to unlock community and nonprofit housing. The partnership includes supportive and below market units, right? So this gets into some of what you're talking about when we hear about supportive units. Any folks, Jen, Sheldon, anything you want to add or say to Ray before I let Ray go? And then I'll also ask if he's got any other final thoughts.
Oh, I would just say to Ray, you're reflecting, as it is CHRA's role, the experience of, many community-based nonprofits, charities across the country. I would say from our perspective, Build Canada Homes was created based on a lot of input from folks across the country, despite the fine efforts of many good people at CMHC, and a lot of them are good friends and colleagues. I guess the summation for us was there seemed to be more rules that excluded your project than included your project in terms of eligibility for funding. So one of the messages to Build Canada Homes is that is getting in the way in a significant amount in terms of the creation, not just efficiently, but just the creation of affordable housing, period. So what Build Canada Homes has done is create this, I guess, model that, in the words of one person I spoke to in the minister's office, there is no program. So you make your pitch, preferably portfolio based, and we work with you if we're interested in supporting your project. We work with you to figure out, is it financing, is it an equity position, is it funding, and the combination, and then of course engaging with provinces at the same time. So from that perspective, it's seen as a much more flexible, efficient approach. When I was talking to Steve Pomeroy, well-known researcher in the country around this in Ottawa recently, I said it's like being in a dark room and someone's telling you there are no walls, but you're not quite convinced. So you're kind of looking around seeing where the walls are. Yeah. I would argue that's kind of where we are. Yeah. There are walls there. Yeah. They may not be in the same place. They may be a bit further away. So we're all trying to sort out, well, hold on. If I stretch that way, and that's my definition of a portfolio, where's the wall? And so that's the process we're in right now. I think we're all very optimistic, but I think, as Ray has often said as well, it's yet to be determined at the same time in terms of does this lead to the efficiency and speed at which we need to build affordable housing in this country.
Yeah, Jen, anything?
Yeah, I think the opportunity that Ray outlined is really exciting, where when we think about the way that we've gone after federal money in the past, specifically for capital for affordable housing, it's been project by project. And we have examples in Choices for Youth history where we've gone after, a 5-unit build or a 14-unit build, and that is fantastic. But that can take years to get across the finish line. And I think what the opportunity here is to say, what happens when community-based organizations, municipalities, provinces come together and say, collectively, maybe I can do 30 and Sheldon can do 200 and another organization can do another 100. But when we put it all together, we could have a portfolio of 5, 6, 7, 800, 1,000 plus units. And to me, that's very exciting because that answers what the need is in the here and now and can really address what we're seeing, especially for homeless populations in the city. I mean, with that kind of investment, you could sizably actually improve the lives of folks within Newfoundland and Labrador and really address the homelessness crisis that we're seeing in this province and across the country. So that scalable collaborative model, which is, I think, the opportunity that Build Canada Home presents, whether or not we answer that, that's our decision. But I think it presents a really exciting opportunity for us in this province.
The only other thing I would add really quickly, Adam, is that we're all very excited. We've advocated for many, many years in this province around you need to set targets over the long term about how much affordable housing you need and want to create. Very excited to see that the new government has set a target of 10,000 units over the coming years. Well, that's step one. It's an important step one. Step two is then, what is your plan of attack to achieving that? And I do strongly feel that a portfolio-based approach where you're harnessing the efficiency and speed at which a portfolio can be brought to fruition, I think that is a key part of, then hitting the target that you've just set. So we're very excited, hopefully in a short period of time, to be engaging with the province here around the opportunity we see in a portfolio-based approach.
Ray Sullivan, any final thoughts on just what you just heard, or or the look ahead, or anything else you want to say before I let you go?
It occurs to me the kind of things that Jen and Sheldon were just saying is exactly what you saw in the Breaking the Bottleneck report from the Community Foundation that was on your show last summer as well. So the momentum is there, the interest is there. It's hard work, but I think we're ready to give this a good try.
All right, sir. I shall see you in April. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Adam. Looking forward to it.
All right, cheers. Bye.
Bye.
I also love when someone references shows of not just like last week, like that show last summer. And I know everyone out there is like, yes, I remember that. So yeah, it's great to have previous references of shows and reports, important community reports from the past, because it all makes a difference for people understanding things. Tell us about Adrian.
So Adrian Dingle is going to join us shortly. Adrian is Director of Housing Development and Operations at Raising the Roof. He is the go-to guy in terms of, not just knowledge around the housing we want to build and support being built, but, his experience and lens around what he sees as well from a practitioner's perspective. Happy to have Adrian join us today as well.
Adrian is on the line. How you doing?
Thanks for having me, Adam. Nice to listen to your show today.
Hey, look, thanks for coming on. Sheldon was just mentioning, you heard the intro. I wonder if you could go a little further into examples of projects just to give people still a bit more of the understanding of where things might be going, what exists now, and that look into the future on the project side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll frame it out for you a little bit. This is relatively new to Raising the Roof, the business of housing development. It's been about 5 years that we've been working on this. And by the end of this month, actually, we're going to have about 150 units that we're currently operating, mostly across Ontario and Manitoba. But we have very ambitious goals as an organization. We're actively developing over 1,200 units of net new affordable rental housing across the country, a huge proportion of which are in Newfoundland and Labrador. That'd be about 750 units that we're targeting there. As Sheldon alluded to previously, we've got two distinct pathways within which we're trying to build housing. One is that we're actively investing our own capital into development projects that are owned and operated and managed by Raising the Roof long into the future. But we're also acting as a manager on behalf of clients to bring projects to life. Those are typically aligned nonprofits, faith-based groups, or municipalities that might not necessarily have the expertise on their team to bring about a significant capital project like a land development opportunity. So we have work that we're doing actively in St. John's. Sheldon mentioned the Duckworth project. We are very keen on a brand new opportunity in the Pleasantville neighborhood with the Canada Lands Corporation that we're looking to purchase some land that they're actively divesting of there, which could create up to 100 units of new rental housing there that Raising the Roof would be working on. And I know that there's other groups, even in the room, who are focusing on that divestment opportunity right now. We have some active projects in Gander, as well as Corner Brook, and we're even looking to Labrador West as one of the next opportunities for us to expand. So we see the dramatic need across the province. We feel like we've been welcomed by the people who are in your studio right now, but also across the province, and we want to make more of an impact everywhere we can.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned, Labrador West, right? We've talked a bunch on the show about the housing issues and needs in Lab West, and it's always I always think it's so important when we talk about Newfoundland and Labrador to focus in on these different tension points of what is happening, and then you're showing the understanding of what is actually happening in this province. Adrian, I'm curious about. I understand the development side, right? So things get built. That I can wrap my head around. But then it's the operations side. So you're the Director of Housing Development and Operations. Can you walk me through, once things get built and start functioning, what are the operations like? So just to let people know how something operates over weeks, months, and years once it's built.
Yeah, great question. And I'll kind of point you to a couple of key factors that are important for us to consider when we're bringing a project about. The first of which is just, if you compare us to a private market developer that would be renting at market rates or above their rental housing, they're going to have more revenue coming into their housing project. They're going to have larger net income, and ultimately they can carry a bigger mortgage than we ever could. So they have to put in less of their own money in order to get the project off the ground. Whereas groups like Raising the Roof, who are actively advancing affordable and deeply affordable housing, they have that additional requirement of having to put a larger chunk of equity into the project. And so even at the beginning stages of the project, before you get to operations, you have to project what your operations are going to look like so that you can know what the ramifications are for the amount of capital that you have to bring forward in the first place. And typically it's a higher lift for us. I think the next thing that's most important to think about at the outset is who's actually going to live in your buildings. I always try to say you have to start your design from people, and you have to begin building space around the people that you intend to house. And I think at the most raw operational baseline for that, you have to consider the acuity of the folks that are going to live in your building and what level of support delivery is necessary in order for them to thrive and be really successful. I'm stealing this line, but I'll say everybody needs support, at some level. I need support in my life because I've got young kids and I've got I'm lucky enough to have my parents and my partner's parents who can look after them. Everybody needs support across the spectrum, and making sure that you gauge that at the outset and budget for it in your support delivery budget is critical to make sure that the people that you're housing are going to be able to have a great life in their units. Those are two key elements that I would say are important to consider from an operational perspective. And like Ray mentioned, that support delivery funding piece is going to rest on provinces across Canada. It's not something that the federal government is coming to the table for. And I think that, on a province by province basis, they're going to have to wrap their heads around what that looks like and what the need is, and also get comfortable with the idea of signing long-term, multi-year commitments to people that are operating this kind of housing.
So sit tight for 1 minute. I want to go back to the two in studio here. Jen, we've had these conversations before as you've been teaching me about what wraparound supports mean and how they function. Just I'm wondering if you have thoughts on what Adrian's saying.
Yeah, no, this is such a critical component of the model. And I think sometimes in the conversation around affordable housing, we miss this key component. There's affordable housing that is just the infrastructure. It's an affordable place to live. And then there's the supportive and transitional housing that is for those that have a history of experiencing homelessness, need more mental health services, healthcare services, family-based services, whatever that may be. That's the model for them. And, I think it's important for us to remember that especially when we work with young people, youth under the age of 30, oftentimes they need supportive housing for a short period of time. Maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's a year, maybe it's 18 months. There's something going on in their life that's created a lot of instability. It could be complex mental health challenges. It could be addictions issues, whatever the case may be. But if you can find them a place that is appropriate for them to live in, it's affordable, but there's on-site services like mental health supports, life skills, like some degree of family-based supports that can really bridge a gap from really not doing well in and out of the shelter system to living entirely independently and doing quite well for themselves. It's that the right intervention at the right time is really what supportive housing can offer. And I think, the outcomes really speak to this, right? So at Choices for Youth, we see a lot of young people who are homeless. And within about a year of engagement with our services, about 81% of those homeless youth actually find stable housing. But it's not just the housing infrastructure that allows for that to happen. It's also being able to maintain housing means I'm able to keep my job, which means that I need to have good mental health services to be able to support that. It might mean that I've been able to help build a bridge back to my family and I have community supports to be able to help that. It might mean that I have access to childcare, and part of that was, reestablishing my relationship with my mom. All of that matters so much in that statistic around the ability to find and maintain housing, especially for homeless. And I'm really happy to see Build Canada Homes prioritizing this from an infrastructure perspective. I think it will be interesting to see how the provinces answer that call in the territories too around, okay, we're willing to come to the table and we see the need around supportive housing and we'll provide the investment, the multi-year, as Adrian said, the multi-year investment on the support side of things. I look forward to seeing how that kind of shakes down provincially and nationally as well.
Yeah, the provinces are in charge of health, right? Mm-hmm. But and yes, I think for this province, 40% of the budget for health. But with that and the health dollars that get spent, having folks who go from sleeping outdoors, or as they say, sleeping rough, or couch surfing, or whatever else, getting into a shelter, then getting into supportive housing and beyond. There's the human care element of that, which is the really, really important. And also, that saves money, does it not? Right? Because it's people out, they're outside of different parts of the system. So on the dollars, even on the dollars and cents side, that is a cost saving.
Absolutely. Our statistics, we had an external evaluation to provide a social return on investment score several years ago. And the evaluation that was that for every dollar invested in our programs and services, we were able to generate $8.93 in systems cost saving. And it's because we can actually measure the reductions in emergency room visits, the reductions in the number of encounters with the criminal justice system, the reductions in the number of nights that people are spending in emergency housing. No young person wants to be in and out of the justice system, in and out of emergency housing, but we need to provide them with the frameworks and the support so that there's a different future that's possible. And I think supportive housing certainly offers that as a step on that housing continuum.
Sheldon, anything from you before we let Adrian go?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, one of the building blocks of housing first is the understanding. I like to put it in real terms that I think it's for people who don't live in the world that we live in and worry about every day is there's three of us sitting around a table here today. How many of us would be here if we didn't know we were going to sleep tonight? Yeah. How many of us would be here if we didn't know where our next meal was coming from? How many of us would be here if we were under constant threat of, violence and all the other things that, unfortunately people experience? So that's the reality check around, how to support people appropriately so that they can thrive. And I agree with Jen. I worked at Choices for Youth. I've worked in this field for a long time, but never met someone who doesn't want a better life. Right now, their life is in a different place, but they need all the same things anybody else in this province would need in order to thrive. So that's just a foundation of understanding of how that works. I think it also from the perspective that we need to address, affordable housing on a continuum, and the support also on a continuum, right? So one of the, exciting things that we're looking forward to is the federal government's Rental Protection Fund. We participate in a program in Toronto called the MUIR program, which is Multi-Unit Residential Acquisition Program. So one of the things we know in this country, year over year, we actually lose more affordable housing than we've been created over the last, 20 years. So it's trying to, douse a candle on one end while it's really quickly burning on the other. So it doesn't matter what the investments are in affordable housing. If we don't slow down the loss at the same time, then we're not actually going to make progress. So that is our definition of how to work on the continuum of addressing the housing crisis and the development and preservation, of affordable housing.
Yeah, for the show, I'm always really big on people being able to explain like the roadmaps of like point A to B to C to D, because that way, for me, because when you just hear affordable housing, you're like, okay, well, what does that mean? And you've both done great jobs of explaining it, because you go from that perhaps someone sleeping rough side of things to all the way up through everything you just explained to also it's families look, it's like, we need a starter home. That needs to be affordable. That's not like over half of what both of us are or one of us are making. It's all of this stuff for these conversations. Adrian, any final thoughts from you?
No, I think that you folks have covered it really well. It is a very hopeful time at the moment, and I want to echo what Ray and Sheldon had said previously. We stand right on the precipice of being able to test how flexible Build Canada Homes is going to be in supporting this kind of work, and how attractive our projects are to the funding model that they have. So we're very excited about what the next kind of 6 months is going to hold in terms of being able to accelerate our portfolio. That's all I got. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks. Great job. Thanks for coming on the show. Cheers.
Take care. Bye.
All right, Adrian Dingle, Director of Housing Development and Operations at Raising the Roof. That bit he said there about was it hopeful time he said? Okay, so how many? Like, I've interviewed both of you folks a lot. What's the last decade, or like, bring me to different times, like, and compare to now, because also a lot going on in the world. I don't always hear it's a hopeful time, so that it kind of like my ears perked up to that. Just kind of give me some extra historical context on this from both of you. Mm-hmm. Either you stepping into the role, Jen, or back for you, Sheldon.
Yeah,
choices
back. Unfortunately, it crosses over between myself and Jen with choices for you. But I mean, the example I can give you, and this may be too specific, but I think it's probably the most significant example I can provide you. 15 years ago, Joseph Youth and his partners came around a table and wanted to build affordable housing for pregnant and parenting young moms. And I often get emotional to this day when I talk about this. But I thought at the outset, easiest housing I will ever build. Yeah. By a landslide. It was the hardest housing to get built. A huge part of that was coming to the realization of the true magnitude of stigma and judgment for young women that we wanted to house, and the blame that goes along with being pregnant at a young age. I was aware of it, but the magnitude of it, even for me, I think I didn't quite realize. And the other side of it is a series of revisioning and kind of, let's put this of housing development in this box. Nope, government has changed its mind. Now it wants it to look like this. It was mind-boggling, the number of hoops and loops and configuring that project. 10 years.
Yeah, I think that was when I first started interviewing you, and I remember these discussions.
Yeah, that is not the exception of how difficult, despite, good people I work with in government, so it's not because they didn't want it to happen, but it was just so convoluted and so difficult. And the rules to trip you up in terms of achieving something like that were monumental. So the optimism comes with the messaging around all of that is going away, and we have a completely flexible approach around working with you to assess things at a portfolio level to get things built more efficiently and economically and all the wonderful things. So that's where the optimism comes in. I've often described myself as a optimist with, very optimistic person with his feet firmly planted on the ground. Yeah. Because that's the reality of we have yet to see. We're optimistic, but we have yet to see how this is going to roll out. But the optimism is certainly there.
It's always kind of like the head scratcher for Newfoundland and Labrador, because you see everyone at the grocery store. Right? Like, we're not in a place where you don't see people where it's like the government is like, oh, I don't know. It's like, no, I see my MHA at the grocery store. I've seen the previous MHA. I see, you see folks around. So there's this feeling, I think, of possibility. And then when stuff gets, bunged up in red tape or whatever, it doesn't work. You're like, why? We're all together. So I'm just feeling some of what you said there and just my thinking of the community here, Jen, to take the baton on that. So it's when you took over, what about your experience of kind of some of what Sheldon was talking about as we talk about this time of hope right now for affordable housing?
Yeah, I think a lot has changed for young people since COVID, and I can't believe we're still talking about COVID, but we talked about the vacancy rates in this province since 2020 and the fact that they've really dropped a lot. And, that in and of itself has a huge effect on vulnerable populations and their ability to access the housing that they need. We've seen a doubling of homelessness in the past 3 years, and Homelessness St. John's has done some great work in kind of quantifying that. These statistics are super concerning. I think that what gives me hope is that we actually do know what works. Like there's a lot of the murkiness around what models are most effective and what does the evidence say. Like we have a plethora of evidence. We have evidence that's Newfoundland and Labrador specific, that's Canada specific. We have international models like the Finnish model that has made an incredible dent in ending and addressing homelessness. So that gives me a lot of hope. I think that the opportunity in front of us is how do we make sure that we are following evidence-based approaches? And how do we kind of put down all of our, at every level of government and within the community sector and beyond, how do we kind of put down all of our individual interests and say, what is in the collective interests of vulnerable people in our communities across Newfoundland and Labrador? What is it that we owe to them? And I think that what gives me hope and excitement is that this is, to your point, Adam, like it's such a small province, right? 550,000 people. And when I think about issues like homelessness, like I know we can end homelessness here, right? If we kind of come together at all levels of government and the community and say, what are the three main interventions that we think could really move the dial on this? We think about the development of new affordable housing for youth. It focus on family-based approaches, and we really invest in wraparound services, and we focus on that over the course of the next several years. That is what is possible, is that we could effectively end chronic homelessness in the city and in this province more broadly. And I really admire cities like the city of Ottawa, who recently made a declaration municipally that they were planning on ending youth homelessness in the coming years. And they've put a lot of money and resources behind that commitment. And I think we can do the same in this province too. And it's why I love doing this kind of work here, because it is really partnerships oriented. It has to be. And I think that Build Canada Homes as just one vehicle for that offers an opportunity for us to come together in a different way and really answer that call and ultimately improve the lives of folks in our province.
So we've been talking about the range of folks for affordable housing, talking about youth, also on my mind right now, it's seniors. CEO of Connections for Seniors is on the line. Mohamed Abdullah, how you doing? Thanks for making time.
No problem. I'm glad to be with you guys and listening to all of this wonderful things.
Give people just an idea at Connections for Seniors of why there needs to be more focus and conversation around affordable housing for seniors in Newfoundland and Labrador.
Well, housing is not a hidden issue anymore. I think even speaking about hidden homelessness is just a term. We see it everywhere. It's beyond like our capacity at this point. We speak about vacancy rates. We speak about availability for housing on the market level, all affordable housing. Our province should be leading, especially. I think every age group needs to have that attention, but. Being the fast aging province in Canada, need to have some attention to the seniors. Our province is one of the lowest provinces in regards to community housing, aka affordable housing. Our province have the highest rate of aging, and we don't have the highest rate of homelessness per capita, thankfully. But if we don't move forward and we don't do what others have done before us, such as Finland or Australia or other countries that have controlled the process of homelessness. When we say ending homelessness, it's just we need to have a system in place so when someone becomes homeless, we don't end up in the nowhere or don't know what's happening next. They have a process that they can go through, especially at older age. None of us wants to be 65 or 70 or 80, and we go as far as 90 sometimes in homelessness. And I know that's surprising to some people, but seniors are the fastest growing homeless population, according to the last stats that we were speaking about with our government and in Homeless St. John's. It's something that we need to pay attention to. there's no solution other than having homes. When you don't have a home, you need a home. This is as simple as that. And that's what basically Housing First is. Let's just focus on doing that. We had a lot of obstacles or maybe not enough attention to the issue. Now we have the issue enough to get our attention. I think it's an amazing step for our community to come together. You're looking at leaders on all levels of populations that are being served in the community that want to come together and work together and find solutions. The next level is we need our municipalities, and we are seeing some of that traction happening around the province. Not enough yet across the board. It should be like a general culture. And then on the province level, I think Newfoundland can lead in solving homelessness. Being such a small, like, as you guys said, like you can see your MHA, you can see your ministers, you can meet them when you need to address an issue. That's the leverage that we can use as a province, not just to be proud of, but also to use it as a solution. We need to sit down, we need to create a plan, we need to have a 5 to 10 years plan, and I think we can end homelessness within the next 5 to 10 years, and that's not a dream thing. It's what others did, and if we just be mindful of our budget, our finances, and then our resources, I think 5 to 10 years is very reasonable to say Newfoundland was the first province in this country to end homelessness and led in this. And it's not a dream, and it's not like a speech. It's something that we are capable of doing because of what we have as a province, and others can come and learn from us. And we're already being asked to speak to how we're coming together, how community came together, because it's a challenge in other provinces for just community level to be sitting on the same table and saying, hey, let's build housing together. Let's share the resources. Let's build the wraparound service together. Let's not do things in silos so resources are well spent and we can do it better. And we're already on that level. This is 50% of the road. I think the other 50% is the government, the municipalities coming on the table, and then I think we will be ready to go. And that's just a decision. When we were in Finland last year, looking into their housing models, the first thing they said that solved their housing issue was leadership and politicians came on the table and said, we will do it. And they committed to it. And they have been doing it for 30 years. And they built over 300,000 housing units in the country. They are over 20%. We are at 1.5%. I think that's the number now. That's very low.
Lots of work to be done, but lots of energy around it. Mohamed, as always, thank you so much for taking time to come on the show and to talk about this. I appreciate you.
My pleasure. Greetings to everybody.
Mohamed Abdullah there, CEO of Connections for Seniors. I'm glad we got ironed out the old phone line. We could, a little rough, but I could understand him. Thoughts, Jen, Sheldon, on what Mohamed was saying?
Yeah, I think for us, the point around community-based housing in Newfoundland and Labrador is really low. I mean, Ray had referenced the Breaking the Bottleneck report that Annex Consulting, Hope Jameson, and Community Foundations in Newfoundland and Labrador published. The OECD average for community-based housing is 7%. National average is 4%. Newfoundland and Labrador, I think it's 0.3%. Yeah. Very, very low. So there is an opportunity. And I think for organizations like us, it's not all about pointing the finger at someone else's problem. No, we got to figure out how we step in and step up and really answer the call and the need around more affordable housing and supportive housing as well. So I think the easiest way for us to do that is to work with experts on the development side of things, like Raising the Roof, other seasoned partners like Connections for Seniors. It doesn't always need to be 20 units of youth housing. I mean, Sheldon already referenced the intergenerational housing that Raising the Roof is taking the lead on with Choices for Youth and Connections for Seniors as key partners. We're also in a pre-development process on 28 units of affordable housing with Quadrangle NL. I think there's a lot that we can do in partnership, and certainly I think there is an opportunity for community-based housing to increase, how many we're actually building as nonprofit organizations. But I think that is most possible when we come together and when we avail of our unique strengths as organizations. We don't have an in-house development leader, and we're not big enough to really have one. But if we could work with Raising the Roof, or we could work with Connections who have perhaps more of that capacity, then I think we can move much quicker. And really, we need to move quickly in this moment. That has to be a big priority for all of us.
Yeah, because I think when you sit down and just think about who we're talking about for that range, right? Mm-hmm. So young people start, whole life ahead, and yet experiencing homelessness. Seniors live their whole lives And we always talk about, oh, what would you like to do in your golden years, and how do you want to retire, and all this. And you've given so much to society, and yet, like what Mohamed just said. So, like what you said, since the pandemic, for young people, raised higher rates of youth homelessness, and the province is also experiencing higher rates of seniors homelessness. And so, this is the community we're living in right now with these rates. Yet, there's effort, and which is the point of this conversation today. But I just wanted to kind of like underscore those points for people to really, truly think about the reality of Newfoundland and Labrador and people who are experiencing homelessness. And then there's everyone, in between for the age range there. Sheldon, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you yet another story.
Yes, sure. Yes, please.
Apparently, I'm the old guy in the group, so this is what I do now. So the origin of how we ended up here, I think, is really important. Because sometimes people feel like, oh, well, it's since COVID, or it's this, or maybe it's 5 years ago. No. 15 plus years ago, the community came together and brought a gentleman by the name of Mark Trotz to St. John's, Newfoundland, to speak to government, to speak to the community. Mark worked for the health department at the city of San Francisco. We brought him here because they had figured out, dollar for a dollar, by far, the best outcomes that they could achieve was for the health department of the city of San Francisco to get into the business of developing and operating affordable housing. So that's 15 plus years ago.
Yeah.
So how do we end up here? The successive failure to do what Mohamed is saying.
Yeah.
Well, how did Finland achieved? I remember a year ago, I think it was in that ballpark, or a year and a half ago, being on this show and you interviewed the folks from Finland.
Yeah.
It was sustained effort.
They
didn't have some magic wand about.
And they told me no one was sleeping rough, right?
Exactly.
Like this was the thing. They're like, no one right now. No one is sleeping rough. Like even if it that stuck with me because this was around the time we would talk about quote unquote tent city and stuff like that, and you would see and you still see folks sleeping rough in the city, obviously.
Oh, absolutely. So that is, people need to understand that if we at some point don't make the decision politically across all parties, I don't care how it happens, to make that long-term plan and commitment, this is going to continue happening. Another show I remember doing with you, I think I sat at this very table with Doug Pawson in Humble St. John's, and it was at the emergence of the hotel as an option to address the encampments and now the very visible demonstration of homelessness in our province. And my comment was, it's the right response for now, given the choices we didn't make starting 15 years ago. But to be really clear, if we are still operating the hotel in 5 or 6 years, whatever it is, then we've really made a big mistake because now we're probably going to need another one.
Yeah.
And that's as clear as I can be. If we do not bite the bullet and really start to come together as a community, as a province, and, en masse maybe to the federal government even, to say, here's how we're going to get our act together and make a long-term plan and commit to targets and plan to achieve it, and then we will continue to see an escalation in the crisis of homelessness. We all know the math is there. Your worst response to homelessness is a shelter. It's a crisis-driven response that has the most cost and the poorest outcomes.
Mm. Yeah,
so is that how we want to spend the money?
It's like the food bank discussion, too.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. The child welfare discussion, the criminal justice discussion, it is if we continue to only focus on crisis response because we think we're saving money, no, we're not. We're spending 10 times as much in short order. So we've got to cross that bridge to make that plan and commit to it.
So we've got a date roughly in April for the check-in. So give me the look ahead on that and what we're going to be talking about there, and what do you hope we'll be talking about? Because the world's not going to change between. Well, I will not jinx what I just was about to say. Things on the housing side of things, affordable housing, won't be completely different by April. But what's the conversation going to be?
Yeah, I think.
And we have a minute left.
Yeah, the focus of the conversation will really be around, we've talked about a couple of best practices models that we're leading the charge on here in Newfoundland and Labrador. The opportunity will be to hear from what's happening in every nook and cranny of this wonderful country in terms of actually rising to the occasion, building affordable housing at scale, and addressing homelessness. And 600 plus delegates, super excited, some mobile tours. So an opportunity for us to really shine as a province and to say, we are leading this in many ways, and we can be a provincial leader when it comes to addressing homelessness and building affordable housing, and let us show off some of the great examples of what that's looked like in our province, and hopefully others can learn from us as well.
Final thought, Sheldon.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a fantastic event. I mean, I was thinking about this on the way over here. I fundamentally, am very proud. There's incredible capacity for innovative thinking in this province. I think the challenge is, can we get the systemic change required so we actually benefit from that innovative spirit? And we've often said, like, Newfoundland is perfectly poised, is big enough and small enough to be leading in every sector. Well, how do we get there? Right now we're talking about housing, but how do we get there from an innovative approach to housing?
Let's figure it out, and we'll do it all. We'll talk about it in April. Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adam.
That's it for the show today. Tomorrow, Dennis Brown has resigned as Newfoundland and Labrador's consumer advocate after a decade of serving in the role. He's going to come on this show tomorrow for the full hour. We will take calls, and we'll talk about his thoughts in the last decade and whatever else he wants to talk about. Cheers.